Escobedo v. Illinois. Okay, so Danny Escobedo was a 22-year-old Hispanic individual. This case took place in 1964, which was a time of racial turbulence. This case occurred between Gideon v. Wainwright and Miranda v. Arizona. Danny Escobedo's brother-in-law was shot the night before he was arrested. The next morning, police arrested Danny without warrant, and Danny made no statements, so he was released later that day, after an hour of interrogation. Police told Escobedo that although not formally charged, he was in custody and couldn't walk out the door. And also, a friend of Danny's, Benedict de Girolando, was arrested as well, and he was thought to be a suspect by the police. Rockney Cole was Escobedo's lawyer, and he filed a habeas corpus petition, which allowed for Escobedo to be released the same day that he was first arrested. And then another suspect, which was his before-mentioned friend, said that Danny had shot his brother-in-law because Danny was trying to protect his sister, and Danny was arrested a second time along with his sister the day after he was released. At this point, police inquiry was going beyond just an investigation into an unsolved crime. Instead, the police were focusing on Danny, and there was an unfair bias against him as compared to how his friend was being treated. Danny was held for 14 and a half hours, during which police refused to let him see his attorney despite his repeated requests. His attorney was also at the station requesting to see Danny, and he was denied repeatedly as well. So, while the interrogation was occurring, Danny made statements which indicated that he had knowledge of the crime and some of the events that went down, and these statements were later used to help convict that he was guilty of murder. Danny was convicted of murder, and he made an appeal on the basis that he had been denied his right to legal counsel, and eventually the courts decided that 2 amendments had been violated. The First Amendment is the Sixth Amendment, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense, which Danny was not allowed, and the 14th Amendment, the Due Process Clause, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Escobedo was, he appealed to the Illinois court, and they decided that his conviction was wrong, and they reversed it. Illinois, however, asked for a rehearing in which the original ruling was upheld. The ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, argued before the court as an amicus curiae, friend of the court, favoring Escobedo. It's also notable that the ACLU was involved in Miranda v. Arizona as well. So in a 5-4 decision, the judges decided that police had violated the Sixth Amendment in this case, and the judges that had voted in favor were Justices Warren, Goldberg, Brennan, Black, and Douglas. It was established that the way the information obtained from Escobedo was unlawful, and thus the evidence could not be used and had to be thrown out because it was obtained without an attorney present. So the opposing argument during this case was made by John Justice Marshall Harlan, who believed it would make investigation more difficult for police officers, and he thought it would make enforcement more difficult as well. But Escobedo was treated like he was guilty. However, in the United States, our standard is reversed. People are innocent until proven guilty, which means that, yes, that justice was right, the prosecution is at a disadvantage. So Justice Goldberg, who wrote the majority opinion, he spoke for the first time of an absolute right to remain silent. And these words would later shift the focus from the Sixth Amendment to the Fifth Amendment. So in Miranda v. Arizona, the court's ruling in this case was overturned. It was decided that the amendment, the Fifth Amendment, instead of the Sixth, was violated due to the pre-indictment interrogation. And so Danny Escobedo was not fully informed of his right to remain silent. his responses to the interrogation were made without his full knowledge of his right to remain silent. And this factor was downplayed in this case, however, it became a big factor in Miranda v. Arizona. So Gideon v. Wainwright established that everyone had the right to legal counsel no matter what the offense. And Escobedo helped uphold this idea that the U.S. has the duty to make sure there's no departure from due process. So a quote from Goldberg is, "No system worth preserving should have to fear that if an accused is permitted to consult with a lawyer, he should become aware of and exercise these rights." So the United States should not have to fear the rights it gives its own citizens and have to fear them exercising them. So this is my work cited.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Something to point out, if people